Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Nishant, and welcome to another episode of the Nishant Garg Show. This show is for people who want to live a fulfilled life through mindfulness practices and personal transformation. My job on the show is to invite world-class performers to share the practices to live a fulfilled life. And this episode guest is Monica Reyes. She is a spiritual success strategist, an activist for compassion, speaker, and truth seeker, born in New York City and now living in Miami. She partners up with leaders to get them to the next level. For years, she served the world as an attorney, owning a multimillion-dollar, progressive all-woman law firm. When she started meditation and learning ancient practices, she experienced a shift in her awareness and perspective that was so powerful, she not only integrated it into the law firm, but 5 years later, she left her law firm to share these practices with the world. Today, she spread messages for success, awareness, and authenticity from the stage. Her global mission is to increase the consciousness in the world for more compassion and connection. She has also spoken at the TEDx stage on the power of awareness. And now let the episode begin. Monica, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
You started your journey from being an attorney. You were working in a law firm, and then you transited from being a lawyer to becoming a spiritual success coach. Can you please explain on that transition and journey?
Absolutely. So, it's interesting because I'm technically still practicing now, although the main transition at the time was to leave law completely and was to leave my law firm. So it really started with the practice of meditation. I had just become a new mom, and my law firm was on the brink of taking off. I had 2 business partners, and dealing with the stress of owning a new business and really learning and figuring it all out, especially one of that magnitude. We had a staff of 40, and we were like putting it all together, figuring it all out. It happened very fast, and really dedicating myself to this meditation practice because I was this new mom, and knowing that I would really need to stay calm and centered and didn't want to harm my baby with stress, knowing that and the more that I read and the more that I researched, reading about my thoughts and how I was breathing and what I was eating and, just the importance of being mindful in every way. And so I really stuck to this practice, and yes, it helped me with all of the amazing health benefits. But really what it helped me, I think, which ended up developing the programs and my message and who I am today, is this side benefit. And it really is the main benefit. I think it is the reason why we connect to source, why we connect to stillness. And it's the development of awareness. And it's, the realization all of a sudden where you have this moment, and then it becomes really who you are and becomes your way of being. But it's where you realize that, number one, that you are aware and that you are also the awareness. And it's that silent observer that developed awareness now, where you are now aware, you realize that you are no longer your thoughts, you're no longer your emotions, you're no longer your identity. And the more and more space that I separated myself from everything in my life, everything that I thought was me, that I was an attorney, that was who I was, my status, my escort, everything that I'd worked for, all of it, the business, everything I'd over-identified with, I started to create space between it just naturally, just with the practice. I realized that there was now something else emerging. The space allowed me to think about, what did I really want? What was I here for? What am I passionate about? What legacy do I want to leave on this earth? And there was a realization that what I was doing was not aligned with. And so, it took me a couple of years to really ground myself in that decision, to really decide. I had a lot of people it was going to affect, including my husband. I was the breadwinner. My business partner was a single mother. I, of course, had my staff. And naturally, though, because energetically I wasn't into it, the law firm just started to kind of, started to lose momentum. Everything started to shift. Things started to change. And so at some point I was forced to make a decision. You either go all in or you go all out. And I chose to go all out, meaning to get out. and to go all in to what I really wanted to do, which was to spread my message of awareness, spread my message that we are this magnificent, humanity, that we're humanity, that, there's this, we're perfect, we're imperfectly perfect in on all the ways, and that we're also this, the majesty, that we're also the universe, and that this journey is about both, and helping and guiding people, specifically leaders. I love working. I've worked with so many different people, but working with leaders just because I really enjoy working with people who are out to make an impact, and, in companies, and spreading my messages on stages. And so there, from that point, I transitioned into what I do. And believe it or not, I'm still practicing law, and bringing it all in there. So it's actually been very interesting and fun to see how all of the spirituality and energetics plays out in the legal world. So that's where I'm at right now.
What I'm hearing is that when you were identifying with your label that you are a lawyer, you are this and you are that, then it creates unhappiness in our life because we are identified with that label. And this is happening in our culture and society where we identify with those labels that I'm an engineer, I'm a lawyer, I'm this or that. And we are seeking that happiness in the external world or in that label. How can we cultivate that level of awareness that we are not that label or we are not our thoughts? Do you have any thought on that?
I do. So you're absolutely right. And that really what it is exactly what you mentioned, the cultivation of that. And really, so it's the cultivation of the space. And so, meditation, mindfulness, practicing mindfulness, being present, really tapping into stillness, realizing that everything is, it's really going to be the practice. It's a moment to moment practice. For me, it's a moment to moment. I meditate. I have my journaling. I have my practices that I do. And it's a moment to moment practice of disidentifying from all of it. And so that's really the process, is this disidentification of even the parts of you. Because yes, it's the thoughts, it's the labels, it's the identities, and there are also parts of us inside in our psyche that have developed within, early on in our childhood, that they're like adapted selves, parts of us that have adapted to our environment. You might have heard of like the perfectionist or the people pleaser, and there's a variety of different what are called subpersonalities, these fragments of our personality that get developed and amplified, and they are at some point dominant, where when we get caught up in a situation or we get triggered, they become who we are. And we believe it's who we are, and they have their own thoughts and beliefs associated with them. And so we've over-identified with these, just like we have in a role or an identity or a group or, a label.
And that is an attachment.
It's an attachment. And so when that thing is taken away, which is what I believe the world is suffering through, in this moment with with what we're experiencing right now, all of everything's being taken away. Now you don't know who you are. And, but if you realize that it's none of you anyway, it's none of you and it can be you, like, you basically reclaim your power. It no longer drives you, no longer is who you are. So then you have choice. You recover your sovereignty. Now you realize that, okay, today I'd like to use the quality of within whatever the perfectionism, right? The perfectionist provides you with excellence. It drives you to want to provide good quality, but it never is not now claiming you. Now you get to use it as an ally with choice and with will, rather than unconscious, automatic, being on autopilot. It's a disruption of the pattern. So it's a very empowering state to be.
Because we keep evolving every time. What we are doing in 2020, we may not be doing the same thing next year. We keep evolving, and sometimes people feel that one job or one business becomes our life purpose. Purpose is something else, but these are missions. Job, business, these are missions to accomplish our vision and mission. So we keep evolving over the period of time. And perfectionists, I think people who are believing in perfectionism, there is a lot of shame behind that. No one is perfect. We can never be perfect. We can only, and there is a saying, keep practicing to be perfect. I don't believe in that saying actually, because nobody can be perfect. If we are striving to be perfect, then we are never going to put our work in the world. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. It's impossible to be perfect. That's actually the beauty in humanity is the flaw. And, the beauty in humanity are the cracks. And if there's a part of you that feels, for those of you that are feeling like you have over-identified with the perfectionism, might have started because you had a judgmental or critical parent, maybe somebody ridiculed in school, and therefore that you felt a lot of pain. And so you adapted yourself to your environment by creating perfectionism, always trying to be perfect, so you never have to feel that pain again. Because maybe in order to be perfect, it means perfect equals love, or perfect equals connection, or perfect equals security or safety. And so what you can do though is, not hate that part of you, not feel ashamed of that part of you. If you do, that's the feeling that you feel, just be with it. But what we want to do is love it. There's an invitation to love that part of us, because that's all it wants, right? If it's trying to be perfect to be loved, then really the invitation now is to do the thing that it needs. It's here for a reason. Provide it with a healthy, balanced way, in a healthy, balanced way, and you'll see that it will start to lessen its grip. You can pull the quality out. The perfectionism has a beautiful quality. I mean, it's just distorted. So with the quality, I reshifted and reframed my entire language around my own perfectionism, my old perfectionism, and it was committed to excellence. So now it allows me to make mistakes. It allows me to, to fail, because there is beauty in the failure, and there's lessons in the failure, and you will fail. You will make mistakes.
Yeah,
That's
and
just what it is.
practicing
That's just
self-compassion.
part of life. Yeah. And really it's shifting your relationship to the mistakes, shifting your relationship to how you feel about failure. That's going to be the key here, is going to shift how you feel about making mistakes and failing. The less it owns you, the less you are a slave to these feelings, then the less, again, the perfectionism will prevail, because then it doesn't matter.
And again, it comes from not identifying with any failure or mistake. When we fail, we can simply say that I tried, but it didn't work, and it doesn't mean that I'm a failure. I did that thing, and that particular thing failed, but I'm not a failure. I'm not identifying and attaching myself with that failure. And there is a huge distinction that when we can learn not to identify with that failure. Because when we fail, people tend to give up. And it's going to be a lot of failure in that pursuit of happiness, or in that pursuit of your goal. If we are not failing enough, it means we are not putting our ass on the line.
You're not risking.
Yeah, and you were talking about childhood patterns. We have these ingrained perfectionism thing coming from the childhood. Do you think our childhood beliefs shape our life to becoming who we are? And can we change that belief system?
Yes and yes. Yes. They say that, I've read research that says that 95% of our subconscious mind is formed between the ages of 0 to 7. And my specific training is around that work, what happens at ages 0 to 7 and how it's expressed in adulthood. And I can tell you from working with lots of people that it's true. And it doesn't have to take the same amount of time that it took to happen, for it to for you to be trained and for it to become who you are. It doesn't have to take that long for you to reprogram it, for you to disrupt it, for you to become aware of it. Sometimes all that's required is an awareness of oh, that's where that came from. Or, oh, that's my father's voice in my head. Or, oh, that's why this is here. And even with that awareness now you've got the space. Now you've got that, that's not mine. That's not my thought. I am not my thought. I am not, I'm not defined by it. There's a space between you and the thought now. And so now just the awareness allows you to just identify it. And then you get to remember who you really are.
And if you're not aware of our patterns and trying to change things in our life, it means we are fixing something if you're not aware. And when we are trying to fix things in our life, we come from a place of lack. And coming from awareness, when we are aware, we can really think about it, what is going on, where this issue is coming from. So Monica, I would love to ask you how we can generate deeper level of awareness in our lives. Because if there is an awareness, the change becomes easy. We don't have to work on the change if there is an awareness. So what specific practices would you recommend to our listeners they can create and generate deeper level of awareness?
So right off the bat, meditation, meditation is a really powerful practice. There are lots of free, right now especially, lots of really free, meditation practices. I know Deepak Chopra and Oprah came out with a 21-day meditation recently. And there's tons of, you can find it and access it anywhere. And I would suggest, if you've never meditated before, to just find what resonates with you and start off slow, start off 3 minutes, something short. If you're a thinker, like that's your primary psychological function, where you think and don't try to do a silent meditation. Go for something guided. Go for something a little physical. Kundalini yoga is a really powerful modality.
What is Kundalini yoga?
Kundalini yoga is the yoga of awareness. It uses the angles of the body, the chemical composition of the body and the mind, and you put it all together into a very specific recipe of movements, breath, mantra, and you get a specific outcome. And it's a technology, and it's a technology for developing your awareness. So yeah.
And what's your favorite meditation practice? What kind of meditation do you pursue?
I love Kundalini yoga personally. That's what I do. I also really love visualization. That's something that I practice quite often. So it's that mental practice. So if there's a specific skill I'm trying to develop more confidence, that visualization was something that I did to get over the fear of public speaking, which was, I really experienced paralysis, really terrified of it. Now I'm at TEDx.
Can you please explain on the visualization process for the listeners who are not aware of this visualization?
Sure. So visualization it's a practice that is very widely known by athletes, by the corporate world, and it's, in essence, what's happening is you have these mirror neurons in your brain that don't know the difference between real life and imagination, and so you're imagining the situation, the event, as if it's already happening, as if it's happening in that moment. You feel the feelings, you experience it, and your body really believes it. And there's a lot of scientific research on it, a lot of research that shows that lots of different studies that I know of that I can even talk about that prove that this is true. And so in essence, what you're doing is, like, let's say we'll use my public speaking example. So in going into public speaking, I was terrified, and so I would imagine myself on the stage. I would imagine myself saying all the words, feeling comfortable, even experiencing. At one point, I started to practice what would it be like to have an obstacle and then be able to get out of it. So seeing myself lose my train of thought in my visualization, and then being able to find my attention, so training myself in that way also. I visualized my TEDx talk over and over and over again every morning before I did it, because that was probably one of the scariest things I had ever done. I was afraid of not remembering my words, so I would imagine myself on the stage. I imagine myself afterwards feeling gratitude, feeling achievement. The other powerful thing about this is not just that you develop your brain in this way, but because of the law of attraction and because of the way that we're manifesting 24/7, visualization, when you put yourself in that state where thoughts and emotions you're acting as if and you're believing as if, you're activating that power as well, the power of the law of attraction. So,
and we can visualize about good things in our life. We can visualize what is going to come tomorrow or today, and we can have this practice incorporated at any moment in our day. And so Monica, what you're saying is we can visualize our obstacles as well. We don't have to visualize the success part. We can visualize our hurdles, obstacles, what is getting in the way, so that we get prepared. And I can call it as the worst case scenario. We can prepare for the worst case scenario so that our mind doesn't wander when we really get that worst case scenario. We are prepared. When we get that worst case scenario, our mind brings the real answers that we are seeking for. Because we have already visualized, we have already trained our mind to think for the future outcome. And speaking of TEDx, and in your TEDx, you were talking about the power of awareness, and you had practiced visualization many, many times to prepare for that speech. Can you please sum up your speech over here in this podcast about the power of awareness, since we are already talking about awareness, which is very, very important. Without that, nothing matters. Can you please sum up your TEDx talk over here?
My TEDx talk was in essence my journey. It was the journey that you had heard at the beginning of this podcast of my transition from the awareness of it that I, well, actually it first starts off, so my father passed away in May. At the time, we were just kind of, we were just experiencing, like reconnecting our relationship. And, so it's the awareness of this one precious life. What are you going to do with this one precious life? And then moving into my journey, my life journey of that question still kind of echoing in my mind, even though it was years before, but that's in essence, the awareness of like choosing to be happy. And really the idea is that, our awareness is our evolution. It's how we're evolving. It's, how we started at some point in the evolution, from when we came from animals to Homo sapiens. At some point we became aware, and it's how, and I know this because of my own experience of awareness of the shifting of consciousness of seeing more and more of life, feeling more and more of life, being more and more connected. There's a knowingness within me that knows that this is how we're evolving. And so it's like this unbecoming. It's this, again, this remembrance is really what awareness is. It's remembering who you are. And in the remembrance, you realize that you're not only connected to you, you're connected to the universe, and you're connected to all of life. You're connected to the earth. You're connected to all the beings. You're connected to everyone, and you're more than connected. You're waves of the same ocean. You are the universe. You're not just in the universe, and so is everyone else. And this awareness also provides you, it's like having another sense where everything starts to slow down. You start to really get to know yourself and your own energy, but then you also start to see the way that the connections between you and others, you and life, it's really
all energetic.
It's all energetic.
Because we are the center of the universe. This is very profound statement you mentioned, that we are connected to universe, we are connected to the spirit, source, God, universe, whatever you want to call cosmos. We all are interconnected. There is no separation. And when we try to separate, that's when our ego comes. Ego tries to separate us from each other, because we are spiritual beings having this human experience on this planet. We are not human experience. We are not having this spiritual experience. We are the opposite. We are spiritual beings having human experience. And Monica, let's say when you are coaching your clients and they are at point A and they want to go to point B, this is very common in all the coaching industry. There is a big gap. There is this bridge that there is this amazing gap. People are wanting to bridge that, and they are not sure how to do that from point A to point B because of lack of awareness, lack of consciousness. There is a lot of fear, a lot of perfectionism coming into role. How do you tackle those clients?
So all of the work really comes through the client. And that was probably one of the most profound things I've learned as a coach. I've been coaching for years, and really that's probably one of the major things that I've learned is teaching people how to fish, empowering them to find their own questions. And so from the gift, I believe, from being an attorney, I am able to see things about people through language, through body language, through the way that, actions, behaviors, and also the patterns from all of the people that I've experienced and I've coached with. It's like a library I have in my mind. And so I'm able to see what you're not seeing, and of course not tell you the answer. right
Blind
away
spots.
because it's just way more powerful when you figure it out for yourself. So I kind of guide you to the answer by asking you a lot of questions, inquiry, and a lot of tools, different things. I've got, hypnotic tools, meditations, but I guide you. I kind of guide you, and when it pops for you, it's pretty powerful.
Do you have some sample questions? If you can illustrate some questions.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Some sample questions, like, so if we were to take like somebody that were to come in, so like even taking that perfectionism, somebody's coming in and they're self-sabotaging, they're so unsatisfied, they're not happy, they're like, and that's what ends up happening with that particular position is sometimes you're so worried about being perfect that you don't start at all, so perhaps it would be, what I would do is I would actually have you play the perfectionist, so that I can get into the mind of the perfectionist. And you can do this with your own journal inquiry, but so I would have my client actually step over. This is called doing pillow work. Have them move over one cushion onto the couch, or one few inches over, and then talk to the perfectionist. Why are you here? How are you helping this person? What are you getting out of this? Why do you believe your existence is necessary? And once we figure out those questions, it's usually very, very enlightening, because we'll get into the root as to why they're here, and that gives me like a nugget of information, because then I know how to proceed. From there, I tune the person back into being into center, back into higher self. I have them move over a couple inches to the right, and then we reconnect, and then I talk to them, from themselves. How did you feel listening to this part of you? And what that also does is it provides the space. This is the space that awareness provides you, where you can see yourself separate from perfectionism. And now that just in that process, I allow them to disidentify themselves from the perfectionist. Now they can see themselves separate from them. And now they're seeing the difference. And then from that point on, what we do is, what can you do how can you provide, what this need is, however reason they're here, like, what can you do to provide it to them on a daily basis, and create a relationship between you and the perfectionist, because that's what these parts of us just want. They just want
becoming friends.
Usually one of four things. Exactly. Rather, most of us resist it, avoid it, denied it, and whatever you resist persists. So that's a one classic example of one kind of process that I work through to help people disidentify, re-identify, practical, ground into something practical they can do on a daily basis to then get, really reconnect that perfectionist and because it's just all it is distorted, and keep the powerful quality of it without it going haywire.
That's powerful. We all have blind spots, and we cannot see on our own. That is what everybody's telling us. You cannot see our own blind spots. Do you think, is there a process we can see our own blind spots through awareness?
Oh yeah. There is a process.
Please explain that. I'm very interested in that.
So you might not, that's the hardest part, is seeing it within you. But the beautiful thing about life is that because your internal landscape is directly connected to your external reality. So we know that there's this law of attraction. We know that we're attracting and we're manifesting. The limiting part about that statement is that we're attracting. You think that it's just things, but you're actually manifesting 24/7. You're manifesting every pixel of your reality. So if we take that energetic relationship, now we've created a relationship between the external reality and our internal landscape, correct? So now we know that whatever we're thinking, whatever we're feeling is directly playing. It's a projector that's directly playing out into the movie of life. And so you can use life, external reality, as a way in, you just take a microscope to what it is that what you're really thinking. You want to know what you're afraid of? What are you bringing in? What are you attracting? What situations are happening? What are your relationships like? We're mirrors of each other. So if you are rubbed in some way with somebody that shows up, even at Starbucks, it doesn't have to be somebody that you know, anybody, any human being, if something, if it rubs you in some way, that's a tug into a place where you can grow. If you're experiencing situations in your life, where something is coming to you, it's not an accident. It's you created it. So ask yourself, what am I creating and what within me created that? And that will give you insight into the blind spots that you're not seeing.
What if we don't have the answers on our own? If we keep asking those questions that what am I doing in the world to attract this kind of thing, how to find those answers?
So it's not what you're doing in the world, it's who are you being? It's what am I thinking? What am I feeling to create that right now? Where did that come from?
It's energy.
It's really,
it's not doing, it's being.
That's what I'm saying. It's just being. So who am I being? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? Who am I being right now to create this? So I'm experiencing, it's interesting. That's how I know. Because I've worked so hard. I've done so much work. So when something is off, like I had a woman who contacted me very inauthentically, and no judgment because it's just a response. It's just information, but that's the word that comes to mind. And she contacted me, kind of like sneak in a question or something without signing up for coaching, which I'm totally cool with, as long as you tell me up front that this is what we're doing. Don't surprise me. But I had a feeling, I felt the energy, and immediately I it wasn't. We did the talk, everything was cool, and I use it as feedback. Okay, great. So thank you so much, awesome. And why did I bring her in? And so, and in thinking about why that came through, because that's that's out of the ordinary for me. In asking more questions, something else revealed itself that I didn't even know about. Somebody, and it's interesting. Somebody was helping me with some of my social media, and they had posted something that wasn't true. And that revealed itself right after. And I was like, wow, there you go. There's the connection. So by asking all the questions, I was able to see, and I had her change the social media post, and everything was fine. And I didn't bring anything in. It's all about, again, it's all about, that was just one example, but I have a lot of different examples of how you can utilize this to see what needs to be expanded within you.
How can we expand that?
Okay, so another example. I was in Connecticut. I was pregnant, and most of the time, when you're pregnant, people are holding doors for you. Like it's like an overabundance of people. So it was the complete opposite. I was in the Miami airport, and people were like elbowing me out of the way. The doors were slamming in my face. It was like, whoa, what's going on here? Ding, 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 ding. And instead of getting upset and being like, oh my God, Miami airport, this is the worst airport ever. That would be me getting stuck in the story. That would be me getting stuck in the content. But that's all it is. It's just information. It's just feedback. And this is where the practice is getting more and more neutral with what the truth of what reality is showing you. That's where it's like, that's really where the work is. But so the neutrality of it. So, realizing I know that it's just information. So, okay, so what is this telling me? And so what is missing right now? What within me created this? What created this was a lack of compassion, is what the theme that I felt after really taking time. So in the airplane, I did a lot of open-hearted compassion meditation, basically. And I don't know why that, I don't know. And I don't know that we're supposed to know, but perhaps in that moment I didn't have compassion for myself. Perhaps in that moment I wasn't experiencing compassion, which is why I created that experience. And maybe I needed to open my heart a little bit more before I did that, full day of trainings for this company that I was flying up to Connecticut for. Like, you're always being prepared for the next moment. So, all I do is I use it as feedback as far as like, what do I need to expand? What do I need to grow in? What's going on within me? Why did she show up as in this way? Is there like, in whatever way, and then I go in and I use it as a web form of inquiry to kind of get to the root of it, and then do the disidentification process, and basically the same thing I showed you.
And knowing the power of language, the language we use in our vocabulary. For instance, when we wake up in the morning, sometimes we say, "Holy shit, we didn't sleep well." And I have the same thing in the morning. The first words came out of my mouth was, "I didn't sleep well." But I was aware. I changed the story in my head. I told myself, I didn't sleep well. Okay, this thing happened, that didn't happen. What can I do now? What can I do now instead of being stuck in that I didn't sleep well? It's about creating our own story. If we can create and rewrite our story, we can design our days and we can design our lives.
Yes. And that's definitely a powerful way to do it. And another way to do it is maybe not even doing the story at all. So for me, I think that's a powerful way, probably for the most people that are listening to this, is going to be to reframe the story, because I think that might be where most people are at.
And accepting it.
And at some point, yes. And at some point, exactly. And that's what's going to be, is going to be exactly the acceptance of it. Okay. So there's a reason why this happened, and I don't need to know why. And there's an acceptance of this just is. And maybe, and what helps me is knowing that there are no mistakes in the universe, and there are no coincidences, and everything is perfect as it is. And when I can accept it as is, maybe it's a dot that needs to connect. Maybe I need to get into a lower vibration this morning so that I can feel something that I haven't felt, that's going to help me deal with something within me that needs to be dealt before I do that thing and impact that client. We don't know. We don't know, but it's all perfect. And the more that you accept, and the more that you trust, and you just go with the flow and don't resist, the more ease you'll feel, the less suffering you'll have, because the suffering is in the story.
And allowing everything to come in our lives. And when we are resisting, and when we are not accepting the situation, it means, or it may mean that there is something about us that we are not accepting. We are not fully accepting ourselves. That is when we are not able to accept people and situations wholeheartedly. And speaking of awareness, have you read this book called Awareness? The book name is Awareness, from Anthony DeMello.
I have not.
This is a life-changing book. I have read it more than 50 times in last 3 months. Awareness. This book came in 1980s. Very powerful book. And this book is talking about becoming aware. You are trying to change something. Changing what? You don't have to change anything. You have to be aware. If you're aware, how to create awareness and understanding? Because we want to be happy, but we need to understand. We need to be aware of what is getting in the way of our happiness. When we can understand the obstacles, we can go from point A to point B. There is this gap, big gap, If we can understand the obstacles, we can get to the point B. It's like there is an analogy in that book. If our car is broken down and we can push that car from point A to point B, we will get to the point B, but the car will break again. So the situation is the awareness is to fix the car, not pushing it. And in our lives, we are pushing our car, pushing our life from point A to point B. We need to understand why that car is breaking, why we are having problems in our life. Do you have any comment on that, or any suggestion on that, please?
Yeah. And so it's accepting that the car is just not working right now, rather than, because we spend so much time and energy getting upset about the fact that the car is not working. And if we just, this just is right now. I don't know why, and I don't have to know why. And I'm just going to trust that this is also still a part of the universe, and it's not an exception to the universe. And when I calm down, I have access to solutions. When I calm down, I have access to my manifestation powers. When I calm down, I have access, intentional manifestation, I should recorrect. When I calm down, I have access to resources and, and so in my innovation. And so when I do that, then I can figure out, that's right, this person has this, or all of a sudden you get an email from an old friend that happens to be a mechanic that wants to fix your car for free, or
manifestation. This is the power of manifestation.
You never know, but the invitation is acceptance here, and it's really where we get stuck, I believe, is when we're upset that the car is broken. And then because we're upset that the car is broken, we get stuck there, and then something else breaks. See, this is always happening to me. And now we've written that. Okay. So now,
it doesn't happen to you. It happens for you.
Yeah. But I mean, the statements, people are like, they get, that's like, then that now they're manifesting through their words of this always happens to me. And it's a validation. And then you get stuck in this loop of that first spiritual stage of growth, that you're a victim to your circumstances, when that is not true at all.
And I feel that awareness lies in calm moments. We get to create a space, wide space in our lives, and we get stuck in go, 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 we don't create white space. We don't create time to think.
And if you're going go, 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 I invite you to think about why. What about go, go, go is making you feel safe, certain? What about it? What are you, is there a fear of not going? Is there, are you afraid? Is there something that you're afraid to feel? Or, just like inviting you to find out why with curiosity.
And write journaling, practice meditation. There are so many mindfulness practices that helps us in calming our mind, body, and soul. If we are not calm, we cannot go to the next level. And when we get to the next level, we see that, holy shit, there is another level. When we get to the top of the mountain, there is another mountain. So this is a lifelong process. This is a lifelong journey, and having practices in our lives to enjoy that process, not just going after the destination, because destination keeps changing. And Monica, you have talked about humanity in your public speaking. You have talked about humanity's thoughts on the inside. Can you please elaborate that for our listeners?
Sure. Can you clarify a little bit?
Humanity starts on the inside. Oh. So, speaking on this topic, can you please elaborate what about the inner being and why humanity starts from the inside?
Sure. So I believe humanity starts on the inside because we are humanity and humanity is us. As we've talked about already through, this podcast already, we've discussed the power of, that we are waves in the same ocean and that there is no separation and that we're all one. And therefore, what we're experiencing within us is also being experienced outside of us and within each other. And, there is a direct link and a direct correlation between, all of us with each other. And so, the way that I see it is when because of that correlation, because of that energetic relationship, the way we are with each other is the way we are with ourselves. And, we can use, so humanity really literally starts with our relationship to ourselves. The more, so like just an example, recently started to get more into politics and, touching, like putting my toe in the water simply because of the power of this work and what it does to kind of reflect what is really happening on the inside. And I was involved in a series of discussions with a group of people they were talking about the president and, just calling him all different adjectives. And, he's selfish and he's this and he's that. And so I used it as I believe, coming from the spiritual and energetic realm, what is this as an invitation for you to see? How are you being selfish and how are we being selfish and how are we lacking compassion and how are we, all of the things. And because he's also a part of the universe and he's also a part of humanity and, and whatever's inside of him and the way that he's expressing himself in this moment also lives within us. We're co-creating it. So it's this idea of taking responsibility for not only what's within us, but what we're experiencing on the outside. That really is, that is the first step before you can get
radical responsibility.
Yes.
And which is tough. We don't want to take responsibility for our life. It's easy to blame others. It's easy to blame parents, friends, society, culture that it didn't happen to me because I lived and I grew up in this environment. It's easy to blame others. And when we are blaming or when we are pointing finger to another person, 4 fingers point to us.
Yes, exactly. But once you start to...
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, once you start to practice this, it becomes easier and blame actually does not become easier. Because you just becomes who you are. It's actually once you start to take responsibility at first, it's like, oh man, I created this. But then you're like, oh my God, I created this. And then what else can I create?
And when we can take responsibility for everything in our life, then there is no blame. And we can do something about it because it's inside us and we are doing something about it to transform our life. And Monica, what spiritual practices do you have in your day-to-day life to stay grounded?
Well, I believe my whole life is a spiritual practice at this point. But and it is, everything, because everything is sacred. If everything was created by the creator, with creative energy, then it all is sacred and it's all a spiritual practice. And if the internal landscape is connected to the external reality, then it technically is all still your curriculum. So, but intentional practices that I do is I meditate. I would say that there's a few different meditations that I do on a daily basis. If I have time, I do a lot of journaling. I do a lot of self-reflection. I'm, because of these practices, I've been doing them for a while. I do a lot of, I also lead a 4 a.m. Kundalini practice online every Thursday morning. So
4 a.m.
There's a 4 a.m. Yeah.
Really?
There is a connection. So according to the belief, there is the Earth and the Sun there's a specific angle, planetary angle that's happening that they call it the sweet nectar or the Amrit Vela, where that angle affects us in a way, and also our nervous system is primed for meditation in that moment. Most people are asleep, so the energies are completely different than they are, and you can feel it. There's a beautiful silence at that moment, a very, very distinct quietness that you experience. And that practice is 2.5 hours. It's very, very powerful. So I've done that. I just finished 40 days of that practice, actually. And
do you still wake up at 4 a.m.?
I just finished the 40 days of it. And so now I'm just leading on Thursdays, basically. And then I do my own.
Do you have any specific morning routine? So that, because morning routines are very, very important for designing our day. Do you have any specific routine every day?
Yeah, morning routine. So my morning routine is, it's really sacred for me. So before I get out of bed, I love to ground myself into, remembering who I am. So who am I? Not in like, my name is Monica Reyes, but, who am I? I am the universe, and what am I here for? What is it? Maybe an intention that I'd like for the day. Before I put my feet down on the ground, maybe some gratitude depending on what it is I'm experiencing. Then I go into either meditation or journaling. And then I usually have some moments to just be with my husband, which he's a part of my morning routine, especially right now because we've got 2 kids, 7 and 2, and they're here. They don't go to school, so there's the quiet, sacred time is really important. And I like to get out to nature. We have a beautiful yard, so I love to get out there. And then I just sprinkle my whole day with that, really allowing myself. I have an achiever within myself that likes to achieve. I also have a part of me that is serving. I'm serving the world in so many ways right now, with a lot of different groups and different things. And so it's making sure that I'm also serving myself. And also that, I'm creating more than I've ever created. I'm taking time to just be and play with my kids, jump on the trampoline, play in the pool, just taking care of myself and also doing all the things that
self-care is very important. If you're not taking care of ourselves, we cannot take care of others. Giving is fine, but before we give, we get to fill our cup first. Self-love comes first. Self-care comes first. Then we can love others and take care of others. And Monica, before I ask you my last question, what's the impact you want to have on this world?
That's a great question. Oh my goodness. The impact that I hope, and looking back already, I know that I've already had an impact because I've worked with lots of people. I've spoken on tons of stages, and so it's already, and you mentioned something here earlier, like that work is your mission and purpose is bigger than that. And so, my purpose extends into every moment of my life. And so we are all impacting at every moment. We're impacting, each other right now. We're impacting the listeners. You can impact, your boss, your workers, your mailman, the Starbucks barista. Like, we're leading at all moments, and and so extending it beyond the doing, the business, the mission. So my hope is to impact the world in a massive way, and really so that the world realizes that you don't have to suffer, because we do have a choice, and really to help awaken as many people as possible to the magnificence that they are.
You don't have to suffer because it is a choice, and we can make this choice at any moment in our life. And Monica, you have talked about humanity. In your public speaking, you have talked about humanity starts on the inside. Can you please elaborate that for our listeners?
Sure. Can you clarify a little bit?
Humanity starts on the inside.
Oh.
So, speaking on this topic, can you please elaborate what about the inner being and why humanity starts on the inside?
Sure. So I believe humanity starts on the inside because we are humanity, and humanity is us. As we've talked about already through this podcast already, we've discussed the power of that we are waves in the same ocean, and that there is no separation, and that we're all one, and therefore what we're experiencing within us is also being experienced outside of us and within each other. And, there is a direct link and a direct correlation between, all of us with each other. And so, the way that I see it is when because of that correlation, because of that energetic relationship, the way we are with each other is the way we are with ourselves. And, we can use, so humanity really literally starts with our relationship to ourselves. The more, so like just an example, recently started to get more into politics and, touching, like putting my toe in the water, simply because of the power of this work and what it does to kind of reflect what is really happening on the inside. And I was involved in a series of discussions with a group of people they were talking about the president and, just calling him all different adjectives. And, he's selfish and he's this and he's that. And so I used it as I believe, coming from the spiritual and energetic realm, what is this an invitation for you to see? How are you being selfish, and how are we being selfish, and how are we lacking compassion, and how are we, all of the things. And because he's also a part of the universe, and he's also a part of humanity, and, and whatever's inside of him and the way that he's expressing himself in this moment also lives within us. We're co-creating it. So it's this idea of taking responsibility for not only what's within us, but what we're experiencing on the outside. That really is, that is the first step before you can get
radical
to
responsibility.
Yes.
And which is tough. We don't want to take responsibility for our life. It's easy to blame others. It's easy to blame parents, friends, society, culture, that it didn't happen to me because I lived and I grew up in this environment. It's easy to blame others. And when we are blaming, or when we are pointing finger to another person, 4 fingers point to us.
Yes, exactly. But once you start to...
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, once you start to practice this, it becomes easier, and blame actually does not become easier, because you just becomes who you are. It's actually become, once you start to take responsibility, at first it's like, oh man, I created this. But then you're like, oh my God, I created this. And then what else can I create?
And when we can take responsibility for everything in our life, then there is no blame, and we can do something about it, because it's inside us, and we are doing something about it to transform our life. And Monica, what spiritual practices do you have in your day-to-day life to stay grounded?
Well, I believe my whole life is a spiritual practice at this point. But and it is, everything, because everything is sacred. If everything was created by the creator, with creative energy, then it all is sacred and it's all a spiritual practice. And if the internal landscape is connected to the external reality, then it technically is all still your curriculum. So, but intentional practices that I do is I meditate. I would say that there's a few different meditations that I do on a daily basis. If I have time, I do a lot of journaling. I do a lot of self-reflection. Because of these practices, I've been doing them for a while. I do a lot of, I also lead a 4 a.m. Kundalini practice online every Thursday morning. So
4 a.m.
there's a 4 a.m. Yeah.
Really?
There is a connection. So according to the belief, there is the Earth and the Sun there's a specific angle, planetary angle that's happening that they call it the sweet nectar or the Amrit Vela, where that angle affects us in a way, and also our nervous system is primed for meditation in that moment. Most people are asleep, so the energies are completely different than they are, and you can feel it. There's a beautiful silence at that moment, a very, very distinct quietness that you experience. And that practice is 2.5 hours. It's very, very powerful. So I've done that. I just finished 40 days of that practice, actually. And
do you still wake up at 4 a.m.?
I just finished the 40 days of it. And so now I'm just leading on Thursdays, basically. And then I do my own.
Do you have any specific morning routine? So that, because morning routines are very, very important for designing our day. Do you have any specific routine every day?
Yeah, morning routine. So my morning routine is, it's really sacred for me. So before I get out of bed, I love to ground myself into, remembering who I am. So who am I? Not in like, my name is Monica Reyes, but, who am I? I am the universe, and what am I here for? What is it? Maybe an intention that I'd like for the day. Before I put my feet down on the ground, maybe some gratitude depending on what it is I'm experiencing. Then I go into either meditation or journaling. And then I usually have some moments to just be with my husband, which he's a part of my morning routine, especially right now because we've got 2 kids, 7 and 2, and they're here. They don't go to school, so there's the quiet, sacred time is really important. And I like to get out to nature. We have a beautiful yard, so I love to get out there. And then I just sprinkle my whole day with that, really allowing myself. I have an achiever within myself that likes to achieve. I also have a part of me that is serving. I'm serving the world in so many ways right now, with a lot of different groups and different things. And so it's making sure that I'm also serving myself. And also that, I'm creating more than I've ever created. I'm taking time to just be and play with my kids, jump on the trampoline, play in the pool, just taking care of myself and also doing all the things that
self-care is very important. If you're not taking care of ourselves, we cannot take care of others. And giving is fine, but before we give, we get to fill our cup first. Self-love comes first. Self-care comes first. Then we can love others and take care of others. And Monica, before I ask you my last question, what's the impact you want to have on this world?
That's a great question. Oh my goodness. The impact that I hope, and looking back already, I know that I've already had an impact because I've worked with lots of people. I've spoken on tons of stages, and so it's already, and you mentioned something here earlier, like that work is your mission and purpose is bigger than that. And so, my purpose extends into every moment of my life. And so we are all impacting at every moment. We're impacting, each other right now. We're impacting the listeners. You can impact, your boss, your workers, your mailman, the Starbucks barista. Like, we're leading at all moments, and so extending it beyond the doing, the business, the mission. So my hope is to impact the world in a massive way. And, really so that the world realizes that, you don't have to suffer, because we do have a choice. And really, to help awaken as many people as possible to the magnificence that they are.
You don't have to suffer because it is a choice, and we can make this choice at any moment in our life. Well, Monica, where can our listeners find you online?
You can find me at www.monica, Monica, E as in Erica, Reyes, Reyes.com. And you can find me on Instagram, Monica E. Reyes. You can find me on Facebook. I am Monica Reyes. LinkedIn, YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. I upload videos every week.
Thank you so much, Monica. It was amazing, powerful, impactful. And I'm sure our listeners will definitely learn so many things from this podcast episode. So thank you again. I wish we talk again very soon.
Thank you. I hope the same. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this podcast episode today. I hope you learned from this episode that you can apply in your life. If you did enjoy this, please subscribe to the podcast, The Nishant Garg Show, on Apple Podcast. You can also subscribe to the show through my website, https://nishantgarg.me, NISHANTGARG.me. You can also share this podcast with your family and friends or whoever want to feel fulfilled. And thank you so much again.